What's up, everybody? It's Miles Turner, the Indiana Pacers. You're listening to the Paceroos Podcast. Be sure to follow @Paceroos on Twitter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Paceroos Podcast. You're on the Australian-based NBA podcast with a bias towards the Indiana Pacers, and we finally have some basketball to talk about today, boys. We've had 3 scrimmage games. It's been 130-something days between drinks for us, and I'm just thrilled to talk about games. Alex, how good is it to have basketball back?
Yeah, it's so good, man. Even though we have to wake up over here at about 5 a.m. every morning to watch the Pacers, but it's worth it, isn't it? So, scrimmages are over. I'm excited to have basketball back in the next few days. The regular season's starting to get down to business. Justin,
how much easier is lockdown with basketball?
Yeah, much better. Even just waking up and seeing your Twitter feed full of, Pacer highlights and Pacer commentary instead of, new corona cases is a positive. So, I can't wait to have it back. I'm actually really even excited for Friday Australian time to see Utah Pelicans and then the big showdown with Lakers and Clippers.
Yeah, it's going to be epic. I think we're all just excited to have real basketball back and excited to see if Denver keeps playing bol at small forward, to be honest.
Yeah.
That is something I've really enjoyed. But we're here to talk about the Pacers.
He's dominating.
He is. It's crazy. We might get to that at the end of the show. But for now, top of the show, 3 scrimmage games have been played, 2 wins, 1 loss. We'll start off with some overall thoughts from those scrimmage games, and I've got a couple of them. The first thing I learned from the scrimmage games is that Aaron Holiday should not be starting on this team. He should be coming off the bench with TJ McConnell as our first scoring option off the bench. I don't think he meshes well with Brogdon and Oladipo. I don't think having an off-ball guard that wants to score is a good idea with Oladipo and Warren out there, who are 2 guys who want the ball on the perimeter and want to score as well. I don't think we're setting him up for success, and I don't think it's going to lead to playoff victories having Aaron Holiday in the first unit. I think Justin should be in the first unit. I think Aaron should come off the bench and provide some more scoring punch. We saw TJ McConnell provide that scoring punch today a little in the first half against the Spurs. We've seen a couple of players bobbing up like Doug McDermott providing that scoring punch. And with the, lack of scoring that we have off the bench, losing Jeremy Lamb, losing Sabonis causes us to play one of our bench players in the starting lineup as well. So we need scoring off the bench, and I think Aaron Holiday's got to play off the bench. Justin, you've always got strong thoughts about Aaron Holiday. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with all your sentiments. Obviously, I've been a big, very harsh on Aaron Holiday, probably since he became a Pacer, and that's only because the fans have seemed to gravitate towards him, which is a good thing, but I just don't think he's got the potential that, the fans think he does. Now, I just want to read out a tweet from J. Michael, and there was Miles Turner post-game on Aaron Holiday, and he said, he has to be aggressive, but he has to pick and choose his spots. He has to be a little more in control. And I actually sent that to you too, and I thought that was a pretty big quote. It's probably the first time all year that I've heard a player critique another player in the media. And like you enjoyed it, Adam. I enjoyed it. I think it was good. Turner's,
refreshing.
Aaron out.
Yep.
Yeah, it's refreshing. Like, we preach, we just want players to be honest, and then we shoot them down once they are. So I love that from Miles. And what are your thoughts, Alex?
Yeah, I completely agree with both of you. I think I was just going to pull up, Adam, you mentioned that you reckon Jay Holler, and I love Justin Holiday more than I think anyone in the world, but you mentioned he should be starting. I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to say Edmund should be starting, actually.
Wow.
I think Justin is too important with that second unit to take him out. I think with TJ McConnell, he loves finding him on the wing, and that would be such a big out. And I want to give you some numbers here, boys. Aaron Holiday started the last 2 scrimmages, 8 points, a total of 4 from 13 from the field, so that's 32%, and 2 from 13 from 3. So
crazy.
It's not looking good, is it? And then you look at Sumner's numbers from the last 2 games, 12 points at 48% from the field. So I think, Justin, you said it pretty well. I think Aaron is struggling to find, I think it was you, I'm sorry, he's struggling to find consistency in the starting lineup, isn't he? And he's struggling to find shots, and Miles mentioned that. But if you move into the second unit, he can become that first option. So I think you push Edmund up and you still get the defense. He doesn't have to take many shots. He's not going to take any shots away from Miles or Vic or Brogdon. and you still get that elite defense. So I'm gonna say, I don't know, what do you guys reckon? I think Edmund would be great for that starting second spot.
I respectfully disagree, and I still stick with Justin. The only reason that I say Justin is because I think we need the defensive presence of two bigger forwards in the starting lineup if we don't have a traditional power forward. And if you have TJ Warren and Justin Holiday, they're switchier. Whereas if you have Edmund Sumner at 6'6", he is athletic, he is quick, he can score. But I just think Justin gives you the ability to be able to lock down better players or have a better chance against those top line guys in comparison to Edmund. But I do agree that the starting lineup needs a change. I think you touched on it there, and that is that Aaron needs to stop taking away shots from Oladipo, from Brogdon, from Warren, from Turner, and start getting those shots from McConnell, start getting those open looks because of the bench players that are on the floor and because he's being asked to step up into that scoring role. We've already got an all-star in that starting lineup who's our key scoring option in Victor Oladipo. We've got our lead ball handler in Malcolm Brogdon. I don't know that you add too much to the offensive end by having Aaron Holiday on the floor, but I think you do take too much away defensively. I think our second lineup, and this is getting to my second point, which I'll get to in a minute, our second lineup really needs to be Sumner, Aaron Holiday, TJ McConnell, Doug McDermott, and also we need a center. We need Goga.
But is there enough offense on that lineup, though, without Justin Holiday? Because then you're leaving a lot up to Doug McDermott shooting threes, and, if he's off one night, then it's all on Aaron's shoulders.
Yeah, so, I respect that. I think Edmund Sumner really needs to step up into that slashing role, and Aaron Holiday can be more of that jump shooting, scoring role with TJ McConnell finding them in the right position. You know that Doug McDermott's going to find his spots and get to his spots for open jumpers. But I think, to be honest, the key and the biggest issue with having Domas Sabonis out is the massive hole that we have at backup center. And at the moment, we've got a rookie who's got a lingering knee injury that's going to be asked to potentially play some minutes in the playoffs. And I don't think at the moment he's shown that he's up to anywhere near that sort of level of production. Justin, I'll put it to you. What should the rotation be right now, in your view?
I'd tend towards what you're saying, Adam, in that start, Justin Holiday. I think we need that wing defender as well and a lights-out shooter, whereas Aaron Holiday, he again hasn't shown much. I mean, I mentioned to you guys as well at the start of the bubble, I guess, happening. This is Aaron Holiday's make or break. And again, I know we're only 3 scrimmages in, but again, to me, he's shown nothing. TJ McConnell was like, he got less minutes and nearly put up like a triple-double.
Yeah.
I think he got like 18, 11, and 4 or something. And, you see the media, Jay Michael, again, he tweeted how good TJ McConnell was playing. And I know you can't really start a McConnell because you need that firepower off the bench. But, I'm big with you as well, Adam. There is a gaping hole, and that's the backup center position. I know he's your boy, but, Jakar Sampson, Alex, is he going to go well?
He's not a center.
He's not a center. Like, we really struggle. And I mean, if we're honest though, Goga's struggled playing this year as well. So, it's going to be interesting. I guess with Sabonis being out though, it's opened things up. I think I saw Brogdon speak about it post game, and he said, although Sabonis out is definitely not a good thing. He said, opens up different strengths with ball movement. And, you look at Miles Turner, he played well. And, it's just going to open more things up. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Nate does.
Look, I think the only other thing that I'd add is Quinn Buckner said it himself when Aaron was on the floor in the first quarter. He said, Aaron is an off-the-ball guard. He likes to get the ball in his spots. So if you're asking him to step up and handle the ball and to I guess, get open looks against the starting unit, then I think at the moment that's beyond him. And it may always be beyond him, except for, certain stretches in the game. I think where he can exploit the defense is the extended bench of the opposition. If we start to get into backup point guards, backup shooting guards guarding him, backup small forwards, then I think he can exploit that. I think he can get good shots. And I think he's proven that against, I guess, lesser performing teams, he can do well in the starting lineup, like those Brooklyn games earlier in the year. So I think giving him a run against the second line players gives him a better chance to contribute and see us through those bench minutes, because we had Domas doing that last year for us. And in many stretches this year, Domas played with the bench, but we don't have a go-to scorer on the bench or off the bench right now. And for me, that's got to be Aaron. Alex, are you worried about, I guess, the rotation without Domas, particularly with big men, or do you think?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, you
can
kind
hold
of
it
touched
down?
on it then. I love Jakar, but yeah, obviously him playing solo backup five is not going to work. I mean, the TJ Leaf experiment, I think we've proven that that's just not going to work either. So, yeah, but you guys touched on it. I think Domas, obviously him being out hurts us regardless, right? It hurts the starting lineup as well, especially with rebounding. But I think it actually hurts the second unit more than it hurts the starting lineup, because we've seen it this year. He plays long stretches with McConnell, with Holiday, with guys like Doug McDermott. Him and Doug McDermott have probably the best two-way connection on the Pacers. They love that give and go. So, yeah, I think if I've seen anything from these scrimmages, it's the backup center position is going to hurt us a ton. If Domas is out long term, that bench unit's going to lose a lot of production. And man, I just don't see where you replace it from. Do you give Alizé minutes, or I mean, because he can rebound the ball? I really, it's just, where do you get those minutes from? I don't know.
With due respect to Alizé, he hasn't really looked to the degree that we would need him to be in real NBA games so far, even when he's seen sort of, I think he started that first game and looked quite out of place. And I think he played a few minutes at the start and then didn't play again. TJ Leaf, they experimented with in that first game, and we saw that Nate lost confidence in him and didn't play him in the second or third games until it was sort of right at the very end of things when he was resting the starters. So, at the moment, I think that's probably one of the biggest areas of need for our team heading into the offseason, shoring up that center rotation or that big man rotation, because we've always had, Kyle O'Quinn coming in or those sort of guys coming in later. Al Jefferson back in the day coming in and providing that backup center minutes or that deep bench center minutes. And we just don't have that this year. And I think it was a real failing it was probably the only glaring hole in the roster, I think, having another center on the roster behind Goga if Goga didn't work out or if Goga wasn't ready for it. And I think it's been unfortunately exploited by Sabonis being injured. Justin,
don't forget Andrew Bynum.
Let's not bring that in the conversation, shall we? Yeah, we've had a crack at a few bench centers over the last few years, and it's worked in some cases. I mean, Kyle O'Quinn was put in some good work for us at different points, but you could always rely on guys like that to provide 100% effort. And at the moment, we don't really have the confidence way down the bench with our big men.
I think I'm overly impressed about the scrimmage, like the 3 scrimmages that happened, though. I'm probably going into it, I thought, or Pacers might struggle, all this news surrounding Oladipo, is he going to go full pelt? And then the Sabonis being out for the, I guess, immediate future, I was worrying that, Pacers aren't going to put up much of a shot. Were, the teams like Spurs and Dallas maybe not trying. I know Porzingis was out the other day, but I think Pacers looked really good, and it's kind of built my confidence to be excited for these next 8 games. I think Philadelphia is going to be an extremely tough game to start with. Definitely with no Sabonis. Like, I think Embiid might go off against us. Miles Turner's always struggled against Embiid. So
if they get him in foul trouble early, it's going to be absolutely nightmare.
It would be TJ Leaf guarding him. So I just want to, it's a sentence I've used all year, but I want to preach patience. I don't want Pacer fans, if we lose to Philly, to, go absolutely nuts and say, the season's over. I think that first game will be a struggle.
Yeah, I was going to ask, Alex, what was your, I guess, highlight from the 3 scrimmage games? And Justin, you touched on it, and our key players certainly look confident. And aside from that second game where Vic really struggled from the field, he's looked pretty good. And I think we can be relatively confident that he's going to play. But what was your biggest positive takeaway from the games, Alex?
Well, I had a couple. I think for me, one was TJ Warren has not missed a beat. I don't think he must be in the gym like 20 hours a day. That man just doesn't miss from mid-range. But TJ McConnell was another positive for me. And then like you said, Victor Oladipo, that game against the Mavericks, you saw that pass he made to Brogdon. That was unbelievable. I mean, he was making plays that I haven't seen him make since 2018. So for me, that was probably the biggest takeaway. And Miles was dominating in the post as well, which was a massive plus. So yeah, like Justin said, these scrimmages, I had no expectations coming into them, but I thought we played amazing, to be honest with you. But my biggest thing is, how do you see the Victor situation going down now? We know he's played all three scrimmages. Do you think, even if Domas doesn't play, do you think he goes through with it?
He can't pull out now. I'm sorry. You can't. Like, I'm so sorry. Whatever happens to the NBA and money, he's played 3 scrimmages. He's looked fine. Nate said he's pulled up fine. I know Victor's saying, no one knows my body better than I do, and that's true. But if he were to pull out now, I would be astounded.
Imagine
I
Pace's
wouldn't
Twitter.
even know what to say.
Yeah.
Like, you just can't pull out now. Do you agree, Adam?
We need to log off for a few days, I think, if that happened, because the takes would be firing. Look, I think you're right. He's played in all 3 scrimmages. It's not as if he's played in one, rested in another, only played half of another. He's played starter minutes. He's played with the starters the whole time. He's played just as many minutes as Malcolm Brogdon, who's had suffered from coronavirus. I mean, he's been leading this team. I mean, today's game, he was not able to find his shot. That second game against Dallas, and excuse me, I said his second game was a bad one. It was today. The second game against Dallas, he looked really good. Today, he didn't look as good, didn't look as smooth. It looked like a little bit more of the Vic of January as opposed to the Vic that we expect. But at the same time, I don't feel that there's any wiggle room now for him, because he's chosen to play in all 3 scrimmages. He's given himself every opportunity, and the team has been preparing as if he will be a focal point of this offense. There's nothing that Nate has done. He hasn't run someone else with the starters. So Vic has been with the starters this whole time, which tells me that Nate is planning for Vic to play. So it would be a real disappointment, I think, both internally and particularly with the fan base if Vic were to pull out now. And I think the repercussions of that would be felt this off-season overall.
I'd feel so bad for Nate McMillan if Vic pulled out. Essentially, all our preparation is gone. What sort of continuity do we have? We're already bad enough with Sabonis being out and Brogdon being out of the lineup during the year, and if Vic pulls out now, you may as well just close up the season. Honestly, there'd just be no chance. So I'm pretty positive he'll play, though. This could be his time to prove to the wider NBA community why he thinks he's a max player.
Alex, do you agree? Is he going to play? And what are the repercussions if he doesn't?
I don't even want to think about what's going to happen if he pulls out, man. I'm very worried. I'm going to wake up one morning, scroll through Twitter, see a bunch of people raging, then go to Shams and go, oh no, it's happened again. But no, like Justin said, I think, this whole week has been a roller coaster, hasn't it, for Pacers fans? He said he wasn't going to play. Then he said he might be playing. Maybe he's playing in the scrimmages. Maybe he's not. I don't know. So, there's no communication there. But I think the fact that he played all 3 and, he's played averaging 25 minutes a game or whatever. I think I'm like 90% confident now that he is going to suit up for the rest of the season in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that he will suit up. It's just we hope that he continues to suit up throughout the 8 games and then into the playoffs, because without him, unfortunately, there's not much of a shot. But you touched on it, Justin, that Vic's got the opportunity to prove he's a max player. Alex, you've obviously sent out a couple of tweets during the week. Miles has the opportunity to prove that he should be considered an all-star at some point in his career. He's got a really unique opportunity. He's the only big man on the roster at the moment who's going to get significant minutes unless Goga can get healthy, unless Domas can come back, which are both remote possibilities at this point. He's shown some good consistency. He's obviously getting the minutes. He's getting the lion's share of touches down the post. He's, hitting jumpers, etc. He's driving to the basket. Do you think that the biggest opportunity on our roster, Alex, is for Miles to step up?
Miles and Aaron Holiday, 100%. I think, we've touched on it this episode already multiple times. We don't have any bigs. Samson's our only second big, really. So Miles, he's going to have to play. If Sabonis doesn't play, he's going to have to play damn near 40 minutes a night. And you best believe, especially with that second unit, he's going to get a lot of touches. I will say that I was a little bit disappointed he only attempted 1-3, especially against the Mavs with Boban. He's not going to go out to the perimeter. So I think, don't get me wrong, I love attacking the post mismatch when he has that. But you've also got to remember he's one of our best 3-point shooters. So my biggest hope is that we can find the balance between, give him your few post touches a game when he has the mismatch, but don't forget that, he's shooting above average from 3 this year.
It is interesting, Justin, that, I've noticed that there have been a lot of Justin Holiday threes, McConnell threes, Brogdon, obviously Oladipo, but there's been a real reluctance from Nate to have all of his starters take perimeter shots. He really focuses on having a big man with a presence in the middle, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I think that's just pace of basketball, right? We've kind of always been a slow-paced team, or, we're never a team that's, top 5 or even top 15 in 3-point attempts. That's just kind of the pace of brand of basketball, and I do understand what both you were saying, but I think this is Miles' time to shine. We all say how he's sacrificed for the team and he's never complained about it, which is fantastic. And, there's all them rumors or factual, statements about how they told him to, work on his 3-point game in the offseason, then they haven't even utilized it. So it's going to be very interesting to see with Domas out now and all eyes on Turner, how he goes. And I'm excited. And I think it kind of gives Kevin Pritchard an eye to the future to see, hey, maybe if one day a trade offer comes up for Domas or Miles, that how's the team going to look? How's the spacing going to look? And I'm not saying we should trade either one. I personally like them both, but I'm just saying it gives Kevin Pritchard that, look into the future where maybe, we could dangle one of them.
Well, it's good planning by accident. You don't want Domas to get injured. You don't want Miles to get injured, but that there will be a day of reckoning with those two at some point. There'll either be a day where we get offered a really good trade package for one of them and we say yes or no. And you need all the intelligence before you make that decision. So to be able to actually have potentially 2-3 weeks of Miles being the lead big man on this team and seeing what that looks like will allow the front office to understand what does our future look like if we were to move Domas. And conversely, if Miles ever missed any time, they'd need to be able to make the same decision. And I'd argue that Domas has more currency than Miles at this point, being that he's a recent All-Star as well. So
are you guys of the thought that in the off-season, so after this Orlando bubble, do you think in the draft and the off-season Kevin Pritchard makes a move? Because he really hasn't made a big move. He hasn't made a trade since he really took over the Pacers, apart from, TJ Warren. I know signing Brogdon, I still classify that as a free agent signing. Do you guys think he makes a move, or we just not, we haven't seen enough of this team to pull a trigger?
Yeah, I think he sits.
You think so? I think if we lose another playoff series, pressure's on. And I think the move may not be in the summer, but if we start poorly next season, the move may be in December, January of next year. I agree that unless we get swept again, he probably is unlikely to make a move in the summer. But if we lose a 5-6 game first round series, pressure will be on. The Victor talk will be up there, and if something happens with Victor, then that could trigger another roster move. We could be retooling our roster completely. You never know. But yeah, I tend to agree with you, Justin. I think, and Alex, I think he's going to sit pretty unless something really bad happens to this team.
It's crazy the importance of how much a playoff series does, right? Because I
4
think
games.
everyone agrees. Like 4 games, like if you're right, guys, if we get swept, then geez, the Pacers Twitter and, we're paying all this money for these starters and we can't even get out the first round and we're getting swept every year. But then if we go on to beat a Miami or beat a Boston, people will say we're only a piece away from
all of a sudden. Yep.
Well, that's my biggest thing. I think that it will be similar to the offseason where we added Reek and McDermott. I think there will be 1 or 2 moves this offseason, but it will just be bench pieces. I don't think there's going to be anything crazy. I think we've talked about it already. I think he'll go for a backup big, maybe like a backup 4 or something. And then if he can't re-sign McConnell or Holiday, he'll go for a replacement of those 2. I think that'll be the only thing he does this offseason.
Be a tragedy if Justin Holiday wasn't on this team next season. I think all of us can agree with that. I mean, pay the man his money. I know that we can only give him, I think, 120% of his salary, and he's making about $6 million. So we can only really give him about $7.5 million. But if he's able to accept that, willing and able to accept that from the team on a multi-year deal, you do that 10 times out of 10, regardless of the cap implications. You have to try and retain Justin Holiday. Guys, I want to talk about Goga briefly. We had a question from Twitter in relation to what we expect from Goga next season, or what's going to really justify his place on this roster. We spent a first round pick on Goga. He came in with big raps from Europe. He came in saying he was mature, had a lot of skill, could shoot an outside jump shot, could block shots, get rebounds. He's shown flashes. He had that really good quarter in the preseason back in October. He had some 2020 games in the G League. You know, he's shown flashes that when he gets a bit of time, he has some skill and he has some ability, but hasn't really come on and hasn't really, despite some opportunities early in the season, hasn't really looked like he's belonged in the NBA yet. Justin, what's this guy got to do or got to give to us next season to retain his place long-term in this team?
Yeah, he's really got to solidify his spot as that backup big. I think he's got to come in for those 10 to 12 minutes a game and, you know, push for a double-double. Honestly, he got to maybe 8 points, 8 boards off the bench. He's got to push. And I just think he's struggling with the NBA game. I don't know, like you can tell he misreads some plays and players get a bit disappointed with him. We can't remember, you know, we can't push him off the cliff too early. He's extremely young.
He's only 19 years old.
19 years old. Like he's come from overseas, so he's probably adjusting his life into a new country, which would be difficult and probably something that people forget. I mean, Adam, you're probably the only person in Australia with a Goga Batata jersey, so I know you're a big fan. But,
I'm invested.
Hopefully that doesn't end up on eBay in a few years.
Well, if regardless of how Goga pans out, it'll be a story. That's for sure. Alex, what do you see as Goga's future on this team?
Man, it's a tough one. I think Justin touched on it. It's adjusting to the NBA game speed, isn't it? His biggest issue.
Yeah.
He had glimpses, I should say, but I think back to that Bulls game where Oladipo returned, and Oladipo was getting frustrated at him quite a few times, wasn't he? Because he made those passes and Goga was either shooting it too late or he just wasn't going up. So, you know, like Justin, you said, it's his first season. He's 19 years old or something. So, I mean, obviously, I hope it's not a TJ Leaf 2.0, but I think that he's got a lot of potential. He just needs a few off seasons to adjust to the NBA speed.
Yeah, I think you always have to give, particularly big men who haven't grown up in the NBA system, in the AAU system, high school, college, etc., a little more runway to be able to make some mistakes. And you're right that the pace, the speed, the athleticism of the game, he hasn't necessarily looked comfortable with that or used to that. And I think the hesitation when he gets the ball, there've been a lot of circumstances over the few months that he's played where he's got the ball, immediately hesitated when he's been wide open for a jump shot instead of just taking it. And to be honest, I would much rather him be 0 for 3 or 0 for 4 than to, I guess, give up those jump shots in favor of a higher percentage or a lower percentage shot from a teammate. I understand that he probably wants to get his teammates involved. I understand that maybe where he's been taught historically in Europe that's been frowned upon. But at the same time, I think it's incumbent upon him to show that he belongs in this game. And the way that he's going to do that is by rebounding the ball, blocking shots, but also taking open jumpers, because that's what they got him for.
I think pressure comes on the player more. And you mentioned at the very start of the show, Adam, is when someone who Pacers passed on, and a lot of teams passed on, but then you see development from them. You know, you see Bol, and I know people think it's a bit funny, but he's out there dominating in the scrimmage, and
Clark
fans
as well.
Brandon Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're dominating. So I think pressure comes on your own draft picks as fans when you're thinking, oh, geez, you know, Miami picked Bol at pick 44 or 43. Why couldn't we? You know, you always bring up OG Anunoby over TJ Leaf. So pressure comes on players when lower draft picks start outperforming your player.
Well, you also got to remember that the Pacers came out like a day after the draft and said he's going to be NBA ready. He's ready to play 20 minutes a night. So when you say things like that,
expectations,
it's going to put massive pressure on the player, isn't it?
Well, there's been comparisons to Jokic. So, you know, you're comparing Goga to, an all-star, one of the best players in the Western Conference, then fans get their hopes up.
And the other thing is that the team clearly believed that because they didn't sign another center. Like that was it. We've got Domas, we've got Miles, we've got Goga. That is all. And two of those guys are going to start. So the idea was always to stagger those Domas and Miles minutes, which they've done to great effect over the course of the season. But I think the great opportunity, the missed opportunity was we needed a veteran big man off the bench just in case Goga didn't pan out. And I think given their time again, the front office probably would have filled that hole potentially instead of the Jakar pick, or may have waived a player in favour of getting a big man in. And instead, we've got, Edmund off the bench, who's shown really good flashes. We've got TJ, who just hasn't panned out, and we wish him all the best next year. But I think ultimately, or TJ Leaf, as I should say, because we've got three of them, but we haven't filled that void. So you're right, Alex. I think one of the biggest things in the off-season will be not only a backup 4, but a backup 5, just in case Goga doesn't develop in the way that the team is expecting him to. And clearly he's liked in the franchise, and, he seems to be a good guy, and he seems to want to do well and want to work hard. But, I think it was his birthday last week, so he's now 20 years old. When I was 20, I hadn't put it all together yet, and we can't expect this kid to either. So your favourite words, Justin, preach patience, I think, with Goga. Yeah. Guys, we've got obviously our first game against Philly. We'll try to bring you another episode of the Paceroos post that game. Any particular predictions? Are you feeling confident? Are you feeling not confident? Justin, you said preach patience. You're not feeling confident against Philly?
No, I'm not. I just think with Sabonis out and Miles Turner's historically always struggled with Embiid. Embiid always gets him in foul trouble, like you mentioned, Alex. I remember actually being a game in Philadelphia and watching it, and Embiid put Turner. It was kind of a man versus boy sort of scenario. So, look, let's hope Miles, he faces the challenge head on, and, it could be an upset win. But I just want fans out there to know, if we lose double digits to Philly, the season's not over. This team is still gelling. We've got 8 games to prep before the playoffs. We're probably nearly locked into that 5th or 6th seed. So, preach patience. And, just a side note, if Jamal Crawford drops 30+ for the Nets, I'm going to be livid.
Alex, what are your thoughts?
I will say I'm preparing to log out day one if things go badly. If the score's bad heading into the 4th, I'm logging out of Twitter early, boys. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
But I think, I think we'll compete. I think it's going to be a tough one. It all comes down to Embiid versus Turner for me. If he gets in foul trouble, we're done after the first quarter. But if he holds his own, I think we can win.
Fair prediction. I think, the Miles Embiid matchup is definitely the key. But we'll come to you after that game. We'll give you a bit of a preview of the next few games. 8 games to the playoffs, 8 games to tune up and try and get ready to beat the Heat. This has been the Paceroos. We'll see you next time.